Verse 496. Like images in a mirror, like a hairnet, to the dim-eyed, the mind to the ignorant is seen enveloped in habit energy. Back in verse 491, we heard that the external world is a reflection of mind itself. This is staggering. I suppose it's rather similar to the mystical understanding that everything is God. This is the realization. This is successful enlightenment practice, realizing this, witnessing the world as presence. But then we come back from this, we forget it, and at first we're just seeing lots of appearances, described here like images in a mirror. They're flat, they don't have any individual identity. But then we start discerning patterns. This is the mind kicking in. The mind is the pattern maker. And it says like a hairnet, because this is what a hairnet does. It gives shape to the unruly chaos of one's hair. And then it's to the dim-eyed, because we're no longer seeing the whole picture. We start imagining things in the dark. We start making assumptions about things we don't know. And this is all in accordance with our psychological disposition, our samskara, what's called our samskara, and also at more everyday times we can understand it as our pattern of moods. How we make sense of it all is in accordance with our pattern of moods, and we keep fueling this. We discern things, we discriminate things in accordance with our dominant mood. And this is the reality that we come back to inhabit once again. In verse 497 tells us that discrimination goes on in the world imagined by self-discrimination. But there is no external world as it is discriminated by the philosophers. So discrimination goes on in the world imagined by self-discrimination. We imagine that there's a self here experiencing everything. All of this is happening to me. This is a story we inhabit. This is the understanding that we inhabit. We feel that there's this little me up against it all that's got to scrabble for some kind of survival and keep scrabbling even though you might be pretty well off. You still feel that this little me has got to keep trying. It's quite a tragedy, really. But in the next phrase we're told that there is no external world as it is discriminated by the philosophers. And the philosophers refer to us here. We're all philosophers because we all make this discrimination. We make this understanding that there's a self here experiencing an external world out there through the senses. I went into some detail about this in the previous video, so if it's new to you that this idea of an external world is being challenged, then after this one listen to the previous video. The verses continue with this theme. Verse 498 says, like the ignorant who, not recognizing the rope, take it for a snake. People imagine an external world, not knowing that it is mind itself. It actually says here of mind itself, but I think we really have to understand it as mind itself. It's not part of mind, or it's not some aspect of mind. It is mind itself. This was the revelation given in verse 491. Mind itself, consciousness. It's like being in a dream. There's you in the dream, experiencing the world in the dream, and you believe you're experiencing it through your senses. But the whole thing is just dream. It's dream consciousness. Consciousness is externalizing itself and creating this subject-object, this self-external world. This is what consciousness does. This consciousness is mind itself. It's awareness. So let's not get abstract about this, or philosophical or metaphysical. We need to come back to practical realization of this. Consciousness is not an object. It's not something we can actually talk about as a thing, because we can't actually define it too well. We have to realize its nature. And we realize its nature through the fact that it's operating now. Consciousness is awareness. Awareness is what's looking at this video. Awareness is what's hearing this. Come back to this awareness, which is centered right there. Come back to the feelings that are going on, the awareness of these feelings. There are a lot of things going on. But rather than focus on these individual things, focus on the fact that these things are actually going on. Focus on the fact that stuff is actually happening. Tune into what we could call the presence of the world. Tune into it in a witnessing way. Witness it. Be aware of it. This awareness, this witness and the presence are the same thing. There is only this great miracle happening. This is mind itself. And if you're with me here, then you're practicing enlightenment.